As I'm sure many of you know at this point, earlier this week marked the 10-year anniversary of Fallout New Vegas. And although I had a pretty special video on that day, highlighting some of the major progress by Fallout for New Vegas and just looking at some New Vegas or New Vegas themed mods, consider this video a bit of a follow-up, as what I want to do in this one is to also commemorate Fallout New Vegas's anniversary, show you some of the best mods to come out for the game in recent time. Some of these are actually updates for pretty major mods that I covered in the past, but you may have missed a substantial update on, but many others are just brand new releases to come out over the past few months. And with some of these new releases, they're adding in totally new features or back-end functionality that the game has simply never had before. So with that said, hopefully you guys find this video informative. It was a ton of fun to make, and it's always pretty interesting to look at where the New Vegas modding scene is right now. If you enjoyed the content, you can leave a like or subscribe. It's the best way to support the video with YouTube's algorithm, but otherwise, let's first take a look at Brave New World, which is a massive mod for Fallout New Vegas to come out this summer. So something you may have not known about Fallout New Vegas is it was made in just 18 months, which of course by basically all modern game standards is an extremely short period of time. One of the byproducts we could see in the game as a result of that is several characters have the exact same voice actor. At several points while playing the game, especially on subsequent playthroughs, you could probably tell they had the same voice actor. And the mod Brave New World attempts to fix that. This is actually a project that's been in the works for 4 years now, and effectively revoices several characters in true to form recreations and in a professional manner. They actually mentioned how they went through 30,000 auditions before they landed on the final list of almost 145 NPCs that are revoiced with this mod. But really, I think the best way to show you this one is just a comparison from vanilla Fallout New Vegas to the revoiced characters.
What do you want from me, woman? I'm in charge of the arena, not the cooking pots.
What do you want from me, woman? I'm in charge of the arena, not cooking pots.
How did you find us, stranger? And do tell the truth. You took an extreme risk in coming here. My policy towards trespassers has not been lenient.
How did you find us, stranger? And do tell the truth. You took an extreme risk in coming here. My policy toward trespassers has not been lenient. The security of this bunker is my foremost concern, and I take pains to minimize our exposure topside.
So of course that sounds great, but something else you hopefully noticed is the faces on several of those characters also changed, as that's an optional addition with this mod also. You don't have to use that feature, you may have a different face mod that overhauls the character faces, but I think it's pretty nice that this mod also adds that in, and I would say across the board it's an upgrade. The voices sound better and across an entire playthrough more dynamic because you're literally hearing more individual people voicing individual characters.
I never finished my training. The Legion saw to that when they overran my town. I do know basic first aid, but I've had to rely on tribal remedies to treat illnesses and injuries.
But even further, just overall, it does have that nice novelty to it. Many of those characters, as you heard, do sound similar. It's not like it's a totally different character out of form for them, but at the same time, I would say in many instances, the voice acting job is without a doubt an upgrade.
Had the Legate been in command during the Battle of Hoover Dam, the Legion would have won. I have no doubt about that. We recently obtained an artillery weapon, but we don't have the components to fix it.
So overall, a massive one. Again, one 4 years in the making that you could download for free right now and get a much better Fallout New Vegas experience. But then next up, we do have Simply Uncut New Vegas. And this may seem similar to some of you, as I actually did talk about this mod in a previous video, a very similar video to this one. Although, since my original coverage of this, it's actually received several updates, and I want to highlight them for you. At its core, what Simply Uncut for New Vegas is doing is re-implementing many pieces of cut content. But unlike many mods that will haphazardly do this or just literally take whatever's in the files and make it so there's a way to get it in game, this mod takes things a step further, implementing it so there's quests associated with some locations that may have not had quests before. So with much of the newly added content, it's actually functional and usable, basically creating a mini DLC sized mod that is all very lore friendly. Well, since my original coverage, several new things have come with this. A former slightly cut companion, seems like this was planned to be a companion at some point but ended up just being a body in New Vegas by default, but this companion being pretty unique in that it is one of the few evil companion options, him being a former powder ganger and being okay with the more bad side of things, but of course featuring his own custom voice acting. Another pretty cool thing they did with this update is they actually added in a ton of NCR NPCs that other NCR NPCs or characters would talk about, but were never in New Vegas. They were just miscellaneous names that were thrown out here or there, but you couldn't find them anywhere. This will actually add those characters into various locations so you could find them for yourself. There's a new Legion camp added in with this. Technically the camp itself was cut, but they also created some quests to give the camp a bit more purpose. This camp is fleshed out with a ton of characters featuring voice acting as well as many unique interactions. It's really cool once you find and stumble upon, and definitely feels like a healthy addition to the game. Another really fun one, it restores the quest The March West, which actually makes it so you have a choice to either destroy Novak for the Legion or defend Novak against the Legion. A pretty cool moment in the game overall, and those are just some of the new additions added with the most recent update. They have a full changelog as well as all of their downloads on Nexus. Either way though, of course, this is a great one for Fallout New Vegas if you've never downloaded it. All I really talked about in this video was the new stuff, and there's a ton of other content from the base mod itself and even some other things I didn't mention from other updates. But then another massive mod for Fallout New Vegas that's one of those ones that you'll probably be hearing about and downloading for subsequent playthroughs for literally years to come is the mod limit bug fix. So one of the odd things, or just kind of quirks of Fallout New Vegas if you've been modding it, is it would have a smaller plugin limit than all of the other games. The plugin limit being how many plugins or really mods you could have added to a game. I know that there are workarounds for this between merging or even now the ESL format with the more modern games. You probably are familiar with the fact that 255 plugins was the limit. Except with New Vegas, there was this issue where around 130 to 150 things would just start breaking, which is actually pretty low. If you are doing a fully modded playthrough with all those texture, weapon, etc. mods, you could get to 130, 40 pretty quickly, and then you have to do some workarounds to actually get more mods in, but this will fix that. As you can imagine by the title of this one, the mod limit bug fix will make it so you can now actually use the 255 plugin limit, which is huge if you are a veteran modder for Fallout New Vegas or even somebody just trying to get into a serious modded playthrough. This is one of those big mods that you are without a doubt going to probably download now and just leave on your game permanently. It's a perfect one to keep in the background. It also may bring some other minor improvements due to the back-end changes it's bringing to the game, so you might have higher FPS at least slightly and less stuttering overall, although I didn't notice a huge change in those categories. But considering now you could have even more mods, another mod you may want to download from the same mod author is the New Vegas Heap Replacer, and this one actually will have fairly significant performance gains just all around a smoother New Vegas, especially on heavily modded playthroughs. So without getting super technical in the explanation of this one, by default New Vegas has a heat management system, and what this mod will do is add in a custom-made rewritten version. That rewritten version being faster, more optimized, and as such things will use less memory, which is good if you are one using a ton of mods where you are hitting memory limits or just were having kind of lag because there was so much going on and the game was trying to process it, but also just in general it's more optimized. It seems you will definitely feel the best results on a heavier load order, but even in my game I did notice changes or improvements on even just a few mods active at a time. It's another one to just kind of download and keep in the background. This one does have slightly more conflict, so be wary of that, but in general I imagine with some of the updates on the horizon for this, as the most recent one was released earlier this month, it'll quickly become another permanent addition for many people's load orders. But with that said, let's next mix things up for New Vegas, as we also do have the Ezekiel project, which really is just an interesting and unique mod. What this will do is add in a variety of abilities to your Fallout New Vegas character, which you can use just by hitting a hotkey. I don't know the exact number of interactions this mod brings into Fallout New Vegas, but it's a lot. So much so that I'm not going to nearly cover all of them in this video, but just as a few examples, you can get this zoom or night vision armor piece, and then just by hitting a hotkey, either equip your night vision and thus being able to see in the dark, and it has a cool little animation to go along with it, or even zoom in a bit deeper as you are aiming down sights with a weapon. It adds in a hotkey for actually going prone, which especially for marksman characters actually can be very practical and handy. There are little things like changing radio stations on a jukebox or just a regular radio. It adds in a bashing attack of sorts. Depending on what type of weapon you are using will depend on what bash attack you do use, as well as once you actually down or make an enemy unconscious, you can use a hotkey to actually bound them with duct tape, and then they will be stuck there until you unbound them or for a certain amount of time. You can use a hotkey to fill your water bottle at water sources. And really, again, all of that is just scratching the surface. There's even a ton of other things, like giving you abilities to save in real time, to just quickly trade with other players. This is a pretty cool mod in that it's kind of all being around a hotkey system implemented with this, but also it adds in a wide variety of things, from just miscellaneous things like burying a body, to certain combat abilities, to certain quality of life things, like giving you an additional or much quicker way to heal yourself. It'll definitely take a bit of getting used to, in the sense that you have to memorize some of the interactions and hotkeys. Some of them will only work when you're looking at a specific object, but across an entire playthrough, it's a pretty handy one, and a cool one to change up gameplay quite significantly at points. One of the biggest problems with Fallout New Vegas that has historically plagued it is its map. Many people found the map to at points just be barren and boring, and one mod that is looking to address that was just recently released for the game is More Mojave. This mod's pretty simple. What it'll do is add in over 50 new locations, some marked, some unmarked, that you'll just kind of stumble upon. They're in some of the more barren or empty areas of the world, things that needed fleshing out, but also does implement some DLC based content into the base game overworld, which I also really like. And really, it's just kind of a handy or cool mod to have in the background. Many of these locations you'll stumble upon, you won't even know if it's a mod location if you haven't played New Vegas in a while, because they feel so natural and vanilla-esque. You'll find a variety of things, whether it be bunkers outside of major towns, or even some overland bug infestations that you'll have to deal with. Really, at its core, it's a very simple mod, but it's one of those core criticisms of Fallout New Vegas that I think this addresses in a very lore-friendly and natural feeling way. So it just makes New Vegas overall feel like a better game, and you'll have a lot more interesting locations to explore or just encounter across an entire playthrough. It's not like these are all bunched up into one section of the map, they're actually spread out quite nicely across the Mojave overall. But then as we turn to weapons, we have another pretty cool one for New Vegas with the Anniversary Animation Pack. So really what this is the culmination of 3 mods and then a little bit more added on top, of course, to celebrate the anniversary of Fallout New Vegas, but holistically act as a really nice way to overhaul and improve weapon animations almost across the board with vanilla weapons. So the first one that'll affect certain weapons is the fire animation variants. This won't impact across the board, but what you'll find is when using particularly lever actions, from time to time now you'll actually have a different animation mixed in. So in vanilla Fallout New Vegas, you'll be consistently doing the same lever action animation, but now with this mod, every once in a while it gets spiced up, something a little bit different. Probably the simplest of the bunch. One of the next ones that is particularly cool is subtle camera motion. So as you probably know in Fallout New Vegas, as you're reloading, it's like there's an earthquake going on or something extreme is happening as you reload that weapon. So with this one, what the mod author did is what sounds like a painstaking process of reanimating every reload. So now the camera shake won't be nearly as much, and you kind of have a more stable view of the reload happening in front of you. Your camera still does react, it still does have some shaking animations, but you're mostly focused on the weapon movement. And then last but not least, we also do have the iron sight recoil animations. By default in Fallout New Vegas, there really isn't much recoil. It's actually pretty tame overall, and this will improve that, as well as making the overall experience look much better. With this one, I would say the before and after comparison is probably the most telling of the bunch, but really holistically, what this animation pack will do is make weapon play in Fallout New Vegas a lot fresher and just overall, I think, look quite a bit more modern. It's not as crazy or headache inducing, and it definitely doesn't bring things up to par with Fallout 4, but it without a doubt is a good step in the right direction to make gunplay in this game just quite a bit more enjoyable. Something else that may help in that process though is another new retexture mod to recently get released for New Vegas, that with Weapon Textures from Heaven. And basically, as you could imagine from the title, what this is going to do is overhaul some of the weapon textures in Fallout New Vegas. It's a relatively new mod, so currently it doesn't impact everything, but what I would say it does do is improve the visuals of many of the weapons in this game in kind of a natural feeling way. And what I mean by that is the weapons affected definitely look better, but they also look the same. You're never going to mistake one of these weapons for something else, unlike some of those other retexture mods out there that take more liberties in the new texture sets provided for them. Overall, I'm definitely a fan of this one. I'm excited for it to hopefully at some point be comprehensive for all of the vanilla and DLC weapons. Right now it's a mix of some vanilla and some DLC weapons, but either way, combined with the new animation mod, certain weapons will definitely look a lot better. But then for the final 4 mods in this video, I want to help you make your Fallout New Vegas feel a bit more modern. The main thing being adding in certain minor or kind of fundamental features that came in later Fallout games to this one. The first of which, what you are probably seeing in the background, is just vanilla sprint. There's some other larger overhaul mods bring things like sprint, but this is a very nice and lightweight add-on. Simply after downloading this mod, by hitting sprint, you'll use some of your AP and start running. It doesn't have crazy screen shake, it doesn't force you to holster your weapon, you'll still have it out and holding by your side, and really it's just a simple one, and I think that's what I like about this mod so much. Although it does come with mod configuration menu support, so if you want to mess around with some of the hotkeys or mechanics, you can do so. One that is similar in simplicity, but also has a bit more depth is B42 Melee Bash. This is a pretty cool mod in that it'll add in the Melee Bash mechanic into New Vegas, and at points it is literally that simple. By hitting the assigned hotkey, by default X, you'll now bash somebody or something with whatever weapon you're holding, but this is actually a really well implemented mod in that it not only does that, you can keep it as that simple, but it also adds in several perks and additional functionality that you can unlock with those perks around this melee bash. One of the most handy ones is Knockout Bash. What this will do is if you sneak up against a foe and bash them in the back while sneaking, they will be knocked out unconscious. Then from there you can do whatever you wish with them. Another pretty cool one is if you have the appropriate perks, you can actually bash open certain locks. The way this is handled is cool in that there's a chance you'll successfully bash it open. There's also a chance you'll bash it to be a bit harder for you to complete. There are a couple of tiers of this one to open higher tier locks, but honestly it's just kind of fun to bash things open. And then a lot of other minor mechanics like bashing the ground to attract enemies to you, and a ton of other perks adding in additional functionality or just increasing your bashing damage. Overall, it's one of those features that you kind of just have in the background, or you could really spec out a character to be somewhat of a bashing build and quite formidable in this aspect of the game. It's a pretty simple one, but another cool one that will make Fallout New Vegas overall feel a bit more modern. Which, speaking of, we also do have just loot menu. So now as you take down enemies or go to containers, you'll have a little pop-up where you can loot things on a scroll wheel similar to how it works in Fallout 4 and 76. This is a huge quality of life change. I would say one of the most jarring things when going to the older Fallout games is having to open up a menu at every container or body. It really is kind of clunky, and this is a very nice and simple way to improve or fix that. It works exactly how you would want it to, and it too comes with mod configuration menu support, so you can tweak it to your liking. And then finally, just hold breath. Probably the simplest of the bunch, but now as you aim down sights in a sniper, you have the ability to hold breath at the cost of AP, exactly how it works in Fallout 4. And I would actually say with this one, if you're going for a marksman build, it's almost a must take. There are of course some other ways to steady your aim, but this is a much more natural feeling one, and one you're probably already familiar with due to more modern titles. But overall, hopefully you guys found this video informative. I tried to highlight some of the best new releases for Fallout New Vegas that will inspire you to get re-interested in this game. If you missed my last video on this topic, highlighting some of the mods from 2019, I'll have it linked in the eye now or in the description. There's been a ton of great mods over the past couple of years, breathing new life into New Vegas. A lot of really cool long-term projects that are finally getting released and are just really impressive. Hopefully you found this one informative or just entertaining, but until next time, thank you all again for watching, and I hope to see you all later.